Okay, the activity on page C32. You're going to need to get your materials out of the bag that says C32. You're going to have small rocks of different kinds. You're going to have a hand lens, which is like a magnifying glass, and a piece of paper. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to explore. We're going to observe. Observe means to look at the rocks carefully. Think of a way you can put the rocks into groups. Classify the rocks according to your grouping system. Record the properties of each group. So when you're observing something, you're looking at it very carefully. When you are classifying something, you're grouping it together based on things that it has in common with the other rocks. So properties, think of those as adjectives to describe your rocks. So are the rocks all small? You have a group of small rocks and a group of big rocks and a group of medium-sized rocks. Is it based on the colors of the rocks? Do they have lines through them? Do they break easier? So you're going to look at your rocks and you're going to decide how you're going to group them together. You're going to have at least a couple groups of rocks, okay? So classifying is putting things together that could go in a group. Then the next thing you're going to do, number 2, is you're going to choose one rock. You're going to observe it. Remember, observe means to look at carefully. And you're going to observe it with your hand lens. How is it like the other rocks in its group? How is it different from the others? Record all your observations on a piece of paper. So you're going to answer the question, how is it like the other rocks in its group? And the other question, how is it different from the others? And then number 3, communicate. This one we're not going to do with a classmate because our classmates are at their houses. But you could probably do it with one of your family members or a friend because it sounds kind of fun. So you exchange papers with one of your classmates. So instead of exchanging papers, you could just have, you could just pick a rock or have somebody else pick a rock and describe it and see if they can figure out what rock that you picked out and then change and take a turn letting them pick a rock and describing it. Reflect. Number 1. You're going to answer this on your piece of paper. Which properties did you use to classify the rocks? So the groups of rocks, what did you decide, how did you decide to group those together or classify them? And then number 2, which properties did you use to describe your rock? So up here, when you were describing your rock, which properties did you use? Which adjectives, which describing words? So inquire further. How can you classify rocks found in your area? Develop a plan to answer this or other questions you may have. I'm going to let this be optional, okay? If you're really into rocks and you like rocks and you want to develop a plan to answer that question, you can do that with your family. But I'm going to have you just stop at reflect. Okay. And then we're going to also, this page is optional, exploring multiplying tens.